ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Dinozor Gaming, where we learn to be a better player. This week's showcase match is going to be the finals of the BM League, and we're going to be seeing Bossk on Detavault versus Count Dooku on Cunning. So of course, Bossk has been one of those leaders that has had quite a bit of competitive success in multiple colors. This set is having a good success with Detavault, especially now after the Django ban. Bossk, one of those decks that wants to control early and drop threats late, playing up a bunch of bounties early on, as well as some small units to chip some damage and control the board until you can drop down those Devastators, those Crate Dragons. And of course, on the other side, we have Count Dooku. Count Dooku, this set has seen a fair bit of success, maybe not in tournament wins, but has had a fair showing. Even after the ban to Triple Dark Raid, Count Dooku is really good in being able to exploit out those giant units very early on, even on the second turn, getting out a Techno Union Transport, or for 4 resources, being able to get the Invisible Handhound to swarm your board and making it very, very hard to deal with for your opponent. Now, one thing to note here is that Count Dooku will be starting with the initiative. However, most of the first turn plays for the Dooku deck only have 1 health. A lot of the early Separatist units that you normally exploit out for those big creatures only end up having 1 health because you want to kill them off early. So it looks like Count Dooku here is simply going to pass on their first turn, and the Bossk player is going to claim, skipping it out entirely. Now, who does that benefit? Usually the question is to be asked on who is the beatdown in this case, and usually that goes hand in hand in terms of who has the bigger deck. And I think in this matchup, it's fair to say that Bossk is the one that usually has the more late game. They are both running Command Villainy, so there probably is the same level of big creatures on the ground in terms of Darth Vader and Maul. However, having access to aggression gives you access to the new Devastator, the new Crate, well, not the new, but Crate Dragon, whereas in Cunning, it is a lot more focused on the early and mid game. So the Dooku player is most likely the one that needs to dish out a ton of damage on Detavault before Bossk is able to take control of the board. So with that in mind, we're going to be seeing the Droid Commando come down on turn 2 and a resupply on the Bossk side. This is exactly what you want to be seeing as a control deck, and that Droid Commando is going to be answered with a Bounty Hunter's Quarry. Now, because of the resupply, this is going to be Bossk's flip turn, which means that you'll be able to potentially claim that twice. For a single resource, you'll be able to get up to 2 3-cost units, so a potential 6 resources worth of units for 1 is crazy strong. And it looks like Dooku's gonna pass, probably because they know that if they play another low drop, such as the B1 security team, to prevent the boss from attacking, there's a good chance that another bounty comes in. That's exactly what seems to have happened. Now that the Bossk ping is out of the way, the security droid can come down without fear of dying for free. Bossk does open up, but now there is a sentinel in the way, which means an event of some sort needs to come down to either kill the commando or kill the sentinel in front of it. I don't think there will be too many lacks of that kind of card in the Bossk deck. We have the options of Daring Raid, we have probably Force Choke, Open Fire, sometimes even Piercing Shot, but considering the sheer amount of removal that a Bossk player usually runs, I don't think this will be an issue. So we're going to be seeing 4 damage dealt to Detavault finally at the first hit, and it's going to be answered by Open Fire. So now with the Bounty Hunter's Quarry, we're going to be seeing that claimed twice, and we're going to be seeing a Kylo's TIE Silencer, as well as probably another unit. Now the Dooku player only has 2 resources left, but due to Dooku's ability, that lets them play anything up to a cost of 4. So we're going to be seeing the Punishing One come in as the 2nd unit for Bossk. That's already a lot of stats on Bossk's board, and considering that Dooku is the one that needs to beat down the deck, it's not a good position for Dooku. Now for 2 resources, what are we going to see? We're going to be seeing Dooku use his ability, which means we're going to exploit out that security droid and bring in we're going to bring in the Infiltrating Demolisher. 4/5, already had exploit 1, probably didn't need to use Dooku. That is a 4/5 for 2 resources and a Saboteur on top of it. Finally, at least this unit now has a bit more stats, won't be able to die directly to a Bossk attack. And with that, they're going to move on to the next round. 5 resources for Dooku, 6 for Bossk. We could be seeing there are a lot of options on the Bossk side to deal with this. Of course, we have a Ruthless Raider that can come down, following up with a Bossk hit. We could even have an Overwhelming Barrage, especially if there's a bounty that happens first, and looks like Bossk is simply going to Overwhelming Barrage, keeping the board very clean, knowing that they can afford to play it slow. They don't need to be the one to dish out a ton of damage. Dooku is simply going to be playing a Techno Union Transport, 4/6 shielded, a very strong card if you're able to exploit it out early, but if you're paying 5 for it and putting it down, it is very slow and it's not really affecting the board right away. So they're going to move on to the next turn, but Bossk ends up attacking with everything on the base, already dealing 12 damage. It's almost halfway done to killing Dooku. Now going into the 6th resource turn, Dooku still cannot come out, but there are quite a few options in the deck that could help out here. Of course, we could be seeing Overwhelming Barrage as well on the Dooku side, and that could help out clear out the board significantly. Be able to either kill the Bossk and then trade into one of those other units, or kill both space units and just start dealing damage to the base. Otherwise, we could of course start seeing other big threats come down, and if you get an invisible hand to come out, for example, as a 6/6, potentially you can start putting some other sentinels in the way to slow down the Bossk while you dish out damage. But instead, looks like we're just going to be seeing a second Techno Union Transport come down. Interesting play from the Dooku side. Punishing one is going to hit base. It is a very smart play from Bossk attacking with that first. Now, if you do end up killing one of the Techno Unions through the shield, Punishing one will be able to attack again. It looks like we're going to get rid of the Silencer. Bossk simply ignoring at this point, just going to base, already at 19 damage, only 11 to go. We're going to be seeing a Ruthless Raider come down as well, up to 21 damage on base. Honestly, at this point, the Dooku player is so far behind. Unless they get a very good card here, potentially maybe a Maul or a Overwhelming Barrage, but nope, it looks like Dooku says, that's it, I concede. Not even getting to flip his leader. That's very unfortunate. Now, while these players are going to be siding, let's go ahead and take a look at some of their deck lists. So on the Dooku side here, we see that there's a lot of early low-cost 1 health units. We have the B1 security team, we have the Kajimi patrollers, we have droid deployment. So of course, in this case, the Dooku player definitely wants to be seeing Poggle or Separatist early, otherwise they already fall behind on the board. Cobbant can definitely help, a card that even when defeated can bring something out. So now let's take a look at the sideboard here. What are the potential options? We do have some Mauls in the sideboard that can help if you are able to ramp. Of course, we do see the Super Laser Technician, which could be exploited. So definitely a Maul could be useful to get rid of that Bossk leader potentially. Otherwise, we do have a bit more late game in the Invisible Hand that can help. And if we're going to be taking a look at Bossk's deck here, we're going to be seeing that indeed it does have a ton of late game. We see 4 Devastators between the 2 colors. We have Crate Dragons, we have Reinforcement Walkers, we have 6 Ambush units in the 7 cost in Maul and Vader. Honestly, that's all the late game you're going to need. So if you can survive the early game, there is not much that the Dooku player can do other than potentially overwhelm you in space. And let's take a look at the sideboard here. We see that there's a couple of shoot downs and some traitoresses that could be useful, being able to steal some of those units before they are exploited out, or killing early space units that before you can exploit them could be useful. Otherwise, there's not much here in the sideboard that could help out in this matchup. And all that said, let's go ahead and jump right back into the game. And these players are going to start game 2 any second now. And starting game 2 now. The initiative is going to be with Dooku again, so let's see if this time the Dooku player can find his first turn play. And we're going to be seeing a droid deployment. Now, unfortunately, these droids do have 1 health, but at least even if one of them is killed with a bounty, you'll still have 1 left to exploit out, and that's exactly what we're going to be seeing here. One of the droids gets a death mark on it. The boss will be able to kill that for free, so not only are you dealing with half of the board here, but you're also drawing 2 cards, so doing a net +1 to your hand. Already a very good start for Bossk. That said, going into turn 2 now, we do have the potential for an exploit into a 5-cost ship. We have the Invincible, the Techno Union's transport that we saw, maybe even some ground separatist units. If I remember correctly, we did see some Legionnaire Sentinels on the ground in the deck list. Or we're also seeing a Super Laser Technician possibility in the hand of the Dooku player. So at this point, Dooku needs to decide whether it's better to ramp up or start threatening the board. And instead, looks like we're just going to be seeing a hit for 1, I guess trying to see what Bossk does. And since Bossk did a resupply, we see the Super Laser Technician come down to match the ramp. You do not want to fall behind on resources like you did last game. That is a situation that is very hard to deal with. So now we're going into the 4 resource turn for Dooku and the 5 resource turn for Bossk, but we'll be able to get rid of that Super Laser Technician, probably with exploit to also go up to 5 on the Dooku side. And now for 3, we're going to see another resupply from Bossk. So Bossk is not feeling threatened at all by this board, able to commit nothing and simply get to his late game even faster. With the second resupply now, we're already at 6 resources, which means next turn you can start seeing those Vaders come down, those Mauls come down. So you definitely don't want the Maul to come down when you have a 1 health unit in play. So Dooku is going to need to find a way to get rid of both of these units ideally. So knowing that probably not going to lose those units, Super Laser attacks the base, gets some damage in, that's what you want to see. Boss Leader does come out though. So let's see what Dooku answers to that. And one thing to note here is if Bossk did have a bounty in hand, it would have been very easy to put that bounty on either one of these units, because even if you're not able to use your leader ability to ping it, most likely they will be exploited out, so you'll be able to claim that bounty regardless. So there's a very good chance that there is no bounty here. We're going to be seeing a force choke played on the B1 security droid, letting another card draw happen for Dooku. Interesting decision here. I guess you want to keep the board as clear as possible, even if it costs another card in your opponent's hand. Now with only 2 resources open here, there's not too many big threats you could be playing as Dooku. If you had at least 3, we know you'd be able to play Invincible or the other cards mentioned earlier. If you had still all 4 open, you would have been able to play the Invisible Hand. And honestly, if we did have an Invisible Hand this turn, it would have been a completely different game. It's very hard to deal with a 6/6 in space that early on, and if you don't deal with it, it'll just swarm out your board. So instead, for 1, we're just going to see the Super Laser get exploited, and we're going to see a droid commando come in. There is another separatist. That droid is a separatist. We'll be able to ambush the Bossk if they want to, but it looks like they will do that. So 4 damage on the Bossk, and Bossk simply attacks base, knowing that the leader probably is going to die. We do see the Legionnaire and the Techno Union transport in Dooku's hand, so they did have the option to play those big threats early. It looks like we're just gonna stall it out a little bit longer, attack with the droid. That said, the boss doesn't have any resources left anymore, so probably going to simply claim, and Dooku will be able to play whatever they want. And so for 2, they're simply going to be playing a Separatist Commando, a 2/3 that gets raid 2 if you have another Separatist. The Dooku player is falling very behind on the board here. This is not how Dooku wants to be playing. We have not seen any early big threats played, and honestly, going into the 6 resource turn for Dooku and the 7 resource turn for Bossk, there's almost nothing on the board for Dooku. This is looking fairly grim. Now Now Bossk does have the initiative, and it looks like we're just going to be attacking with Bossk, dealing another 4 damage to the base. Bossk doesn't seem to care at the moment about the board, most likely because there's nothing too threatening here. Of course, the commando could kill Bossk, but if you are trading units as the Dooku player when you're already this far behind, that's what Bossk definitely wants to see. Otherwise, if you had simply attacked into the commando as that boss, you would have had the exact same board state, but with 4 less damage on the board. And now the boss player plays Maul, hits that droid, dealing 6 overwhelm damage. 1 damage on Maul. There we go. That's that 1 damage on Maul, but 6 damage overwhelm on the base. And now Dooku has nothing in play. For 5, we're going to be seeing a Legionnaire come in. Thankfully, with that 5 attack and the Sentinel trait keyword, we'll probably be able to take out that Maul unless another event comes in. But even if Maul attacks into it, that's another 3 damage to the base. The Dooku player is bleeding health at this point. But luckily, we're going into the 7 resource turn, and Dooku might finally come out. Dooku himself, a 5/9, able to help ideally sustain the board. But on the Bossk side, we're going to be seeing a Vader come in, so that Maul does not need to die to take care of that Sentinel. Instead, we're just going to be developing the board even further, having a 5/2 leftover after the ambush, as well as putting out some cards. In this case, the Punishing One is going to come out. And the only real way for this board to be dealt with at the moment is most likely an overwhelming barrage. There's not too many other options in the color combination of Command and Cunning. There's obviously we have the option for Evacuate, but we did see the deck list and that's not an option here. So we're gonna hopefully see some other way, like we're gonna be seeing another Legionnaire for 5. Maul does end up killing it, but instead of taking the damage on Maul, looks like when you put the damage on Punishing One, the Overwhelm 3 still happens. That is a very unfortunate situation for Dooku. It is. I don't see the Dooku be a player being able to come back from this. Of course, Dooku can come out here, and Dooku is able to kill that Maul without actually dying as a leader, so it does help you sustain the board a little bit. But at this point, your opponent is going into the 9 resource turn next turn, so we can start seeing things like Crate Dragon come in, or potentially even Devastator. So that's exactly what happens here. The Dooku does come out, Dooku kills them all, and with the extra 2 resources, nothing. We're just going to go ahead and move on to the next turn. We do see a blaster drawn going into the resources for Dooku. We're not able to see much of Bossk's hand, but that's all right. So the initiative is with Bossk at the moment, and that Dooku does only have 2 health remaining. That said, it might be an acceptable play here to just ignore that Dooku and hit the base. We're seeing already 17 damage on Dooku's base, only 13 more to go, whereas that Data Vault has only taken 4 damage. And so that's exactly what happens here. Vader hits the base for 5. We're at 22 damage here. Bossk does not feel under any danger. So in this situation, you don't need to be the one triggering trades, because if you are believing that your opponent is most likely going to be trading into your units, might as well get as much damage out of them as possible. Looks like that's exactly what happens here. So the Bossk did the right play. Dooku ends up trading into that Vader. Of course, Dooku does have Overwhelm, so a bit of base damage is dealt. But now for 8, we're going to be seeing a Devastator come down from Bossk, dealing another 4 damage to the base. And that's it. Looks like Dooku says, I cannot deal with that. And that is the end of that game. That was a very clear victory from Bossk. It looked like that Dooku player did not have much of a chance, but unfortunately it is because the deck did not play the way it intended to. When you are not able to exploit out those early units, you fall quite a bit behind. So with all that said, let's go ahead and show the deck lists. And don't forget, we will be putting the links to the deck lists in the comments below. So thank you everybody for watching, always a pleasure. And if you liked what you're seeing, if you like this content and you want more of it, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. And thank you so much. I will see you guys next time.